Methods of plant pollination. Pollination is the process by which pollen is transferred in the reproduction of plants, thereby enabling fertilization and sexual reproduction. Flowering plants have several different parts that are important in pollination. Flowers have male parts called stamens that produce a sticky powder called pollen. They also have a female part called the pistil. The top of the pistil is called the stigma and is often sticky. Seeds are made at the base of the pistil, in the ovule. To be pollinated, pollen must be moved from a stamen to the stigma. In order for pollination to be successful, pollen must be transferred between plants of the same species. For example, a rose flower must always receive rose pollen, and a pine tree must always receive pine pollen. Plants typically rely on one of two methods of pollination: cross-pollination or self-pollination, but some species are capable of both. Most plants are designed for cross-pollination, a process in which pollen is transferred between different plants of the same species. In self-pollination, pollen is transferred from the stamens to the pistil within one flower. Unlike animals, plants are literally rooted to the spot, and so cannot move to combine sex cells from different plants. For this reason, plant species have evolved effective strategies for accomplishing cross-pollination. Some plants simply allow their pollen to be carried on the wind, as is the case with wheat, rice, corn, and other grasses, and pines, firs, cedars, and other conifers. This method works well if the individual plants are growing close together. To ensure success, huge amounts of pollen must be produced, most of which never reaches another plant. Most plants, however, do not rely on the wind. These plants employ pollinators, bees, butterflies, and other insects, as well as birds, bats, and mice, to transport pollen between sometimes widely scattered plants. While this strategy enables plants to expend less energy making large amounts of pollen, they must still use energy to produce incentives for their pollinators. For instance, birds and insects may be attracted to a plant's tasty food in the form of nectar, a sugary, energy-rich fluid that bees eat and also use for making honey. Bees and other pollinators may be attracted by a plant's pollen, a nutritious food that is high in protein and provides almost every known vitamin, about 25 trace minerals, and 22 amino acids. As a pollinator enters a flower or probes it for nectar, typically located deep in the flower, or grazes on the pollen itself, the sticky pollen attaches to parts of its body. When the pollinator visits the next flower in search of more nectar or pollen, it brushes against the stigma, and pollen grains rub off onto the stigma. In this way, pollinators inadvertently transfer pollen from flower to flower. Flowers are designed to attract pollinators, and the unique shape, color, and even scent of a flower appeals to specific pollinators. Birds see the color red particularly well and are prone to pollinating red flowers. The long red floral tubes of certain flowers are designed to attract hummingbirds, but discourage small insects that might take the nectar without transferring pollen. Flowers that are pollinated by bats are usually large, light in color, heavily scented, and open at night, when bats are most active. Many of the brighter pink, orange, and yellow flowers are marked by patterns on the petals that can be seen only with ultraviolet light. These patterns act as maps to the nectar glands typically located at the base of the flower. Bees are able to see ultraviolet light and use the color patterns to find nectar efficiently. The interactions between plants and animals are mutual, since both species benefit from the interaction. Undoubtedly, plants have evolved flower structures that successfully attract specific pollinators, and in some cases, the pollinators may have adapted their behaviors to take advantage of the resources offered by specific kinds of flowers.